We're right with you. The Morning Majority, 5 to 9 on 630 WMAL.
8:07 on WMAL, Wednesday morning in Washington, D.C. This is the Morning Majority. Brian Neiman, Tony Blankley in this morning. Michael Steele will be back tomorrow, former Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, former head of the RNC, will be guest hosting on Thursday. And we have Janet Napolitano on the show tomorrow as well. That should be interesting. Andrew Breitbart will be in the house on Friday, along with Mary Catherine Ham from the Daily Caller. Pleased to be joined now in studio by Bryan Caplan, professor of economics at George Mason University, who has written a new book called Selfish Reasons to Have More Kids. And I have to say, Brian, when I read the review about this in the Wall Street Journal, I said, all right, this is my kind of book, because it says essentially that we spend way too much time and effort raising our kids. Explain.
That's right. So a lot of what parents are doing is suffering and sacrificing on the theory that one day their child will be a superstar because of the way that they raise them.
Yes.
And, of course, you might say, well, who knows? Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. There's no way of telling. It's just a matter of opinion. But actually, there is a massive scientific literature that studies kids who are adopted and twins that really measures how much of a difference parents make on the kind of person that you become. So, in the case of adoptions, it's really easy to see how this works. So if you're adopted by a family and you turn out to resemble them in any way, that suggests that they actually changed you. And if you look at thousands of kids who are adopted and see that kids adopted by certain kinds of families turn out differently, it gives you some really strong evidence that parents matter. But on the other hand, if kids who are adopted by, say, richer families don't turn out to have higher income,
right,
that's a strong indication that actually the parents aren't changing the kids. So
are you saying that heredity is everything?
Heredity explains almost all family resemblance for most traits. There are exceptions, but still, compared to what most people think, the long-run effect that you have on your child is a lot less than you think. And the upshot of this is that parents can really give themselves a big break and relax and realize, look, there's a big range of different parenting styles that are all about equally good in terms of the adult your child's going to become. So you might as well just focus on enjoying your time with your child. So, focus on having a good relationship, doing things that are fun together, and just lighten up and stop stressing so much.
So the tiger mom is full of crap? Is that what you're saying, to boil it down?
Yeah, not to put too fine a point on it. Well,
that was me. That was
yes.
The Brian Neiman portion of the comment.
Here's the thing. So a parent who rides a child can teach the child a specific skill. You can force your child to learn a language. You can force your child to learn piano. But in terms of actually, say, giving the child a good job or a good educational outcome, or making the child a happy adult, there's strong evidence that the stuff really has little or no effect. Actually, what's really striking about the tiger mom is that the most meaningful counterexample, the most meaningful exception to the rule that parents don't have much long-run effect on their kids, is on how your kids feel about and remember you. So there was a Swedish twin study that talked to adults when they were in their 50s and 60s and 70s. And what it found is that whether you're an identical twin or a fraternal twin, if you were raised in the same house, you have quite similar views about whether your parents were kind to you, whether they had time for you, whether they're good to you or not. So, really, this is the truly meaningful, lasting effect you have on your child is just the way that they feel about you. So, the effect of being a tiger mom, you probably aren't going to turn your kid into a superstar, but you may very well turn them into a person that isn't happy to be around you. And when you call, they're like, "Oh no, mom."
But she would argue that their kids respect her and they love her.
Well, if you read the entire book, if you read the entire book, her actual story is not nearly as upbeat, even on her own terms. So she has one daughter, so two daughters, both virtuosos, and the older daughter seems okay with it, but the younger daughter, the big story arc of the book is that she tells her mom that she hates her and doesn't want to have any, and can't stand to be around her anymore. And finally, even the dragon lady herself eventually tells her daughter, "Fine, you can quit." And the daughter doesn't quite quit violin, but basically abandons her mom's plans for her, and the damage has been done.
If I understand you correctly, it's not that there are different parenting styles. You can pick the one you want. It doesn't matter whether you pick one style or not. Is that you really? Well,
it matters in terms of how enjoyable your family time is together. So you can have the lifestyle where everybody gets up at 4 in the morning.
If it's largely heredity, which is the data underlie that you use, then it doesn't particularly matter whether you're a tough disciplinarian or a slacker as a parent. I mean, do you live? I have curiosity. I noticed in your bio you got 3 kids. I got 3 kids. So, do you really live out this conviction, or do you try to be a good parent? I'm sure you might try to be a good parent.
Living out this conviction is being a good parent. Now, here's the thing. What I've been talking about the effect on long-run adult outcomes. It's a very different story if you talk about short-run outcomes. So, parents can affect whether or not their baby sleeps at night. Parents can affect whether their child runs around hitting other people or hitting themselves. So, what I'm saying, focus on the present. Don't sit around worrying about what's the effect of this going to be in 20 years, because that's not the effect to worry about. You don't have that. But certainly you can. There are many things that you can do to make your child behave better. And in the book, I actually talk about experiments that have been done on kids who don't sleep, kids who hit other kids and are very badly behaved. So here you really can change your kids, and you can do it in very reasonable ways. So in the case of sleep, what's called the Ferber method, where you just let the kid cry for 5 or 10 minutes, come back, comfort him, leave. Yeah. That really works, even for kids who have big sleep problems. For bad behavior, same thing. The naughty corner works. You can take a bad, as long as you have clear, consistent rules enforced with mild discipline, you can make your kid into a decent roommate.
I'm talking with Bryan Caplan, an economist at George Mason, author of the book Selfish Reasons to Have More Kids, and we'll open the phone lines as well. And a lot of people want to call in and ask you a couple questions on this. 1-888-630-9625 is the phone number. You can text feedback to 68683. But what about, I don't know about your kids. You have 3. I have 2. And I'm convinced that my oldest kid is going to grow up to be a priest and just this wonderful person. And the second kid is destined for a life of crime and drug abuse. I see it right now. And I don't raise them any differently. So what about the kids that one really makes it big and the other one doesn't? How do you explain those families?
Well, remember that siblings only share half their genes. That's the main reason why siblings are so different from each other, so different from each other, even when they're raised together.
So the second one, my wife's genes, huh?
It's half of each, but different half. I think it's very likely that both your children will turn out very well. I don't give up hope. It's very unusual for a child to become a criminal. So
what about the data that I think exists that suggests that placement, whether your first child, second or third child, makes a difference? If it does, is that sort of inconsistent with your analysis?
That turns out to be mostly wrong, actually. It is true that firstborns, when they're around their families, when they come back for the holidays, are more, act more like an authority figure, and so they're used to this. But when they go out into the world, people don't know your birth order, and you basically forget it too. It's not true that firstborns make higher income, not true that they have higher IQs. Essentially, it's just within the family, people remember you being the older one, and they treat you a bit differently. But birth order is greatly exaggerated in